Hey guys, tonight we step into the shadowy world of art forgery and deceit. Picture yourself walking down a quiet, cobblestone street in Warsaw, your footsteps echoing softly in the still night air. The city is alive with history, but for now, it's just you and the faint smell of paint and canvas that drifts from an old, unassuming art shop. This shop, tucked away in a corner, is where our story begins. A place where a small time art dealer's life is about to take a dramatic turn. He's about to become one of the most notorious smugglers in post war Europe, though it's something even he never saw coming. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from, so drop your location and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The year is 1947. Warsaw is slowly recovering from the ashes of war, but the city still carries the scars of its not-so-distant past. Among its restored buildings, a small shop stands with a quiet reputation. You'd hardly notice it, tucked between two larger, more prominent buildings. The owner, a man named Carol, is nothing special, just another artist trying to make ends meet in a war-torn city. He's been in the business long enough to know that it's not the talent that makes an artist successful. It's the connections, the right buyer, and perhaps a little luck. Carol is no exception to the rule, and his art shop caters mostly to locals looking to buy modest landscapes or portraits. But what they don't know is that Carol has a secret, and it's not about the art he paints. It's about the art he creates for other people, art that doesn't belong to him. In the back of the shop, Carol is beginning to experiment with something far more dangerous than any painting he's ever sold. He's forging masterpieces. The idea starts small, of course. A request from a wealthy buyer to touch up an old painting turns into something more. It's harmless at first, just a little addition here and there, a new layer of paint, and suddenly a picture of something more valuable than it seemed. Carol feels a strange thrill, a rush, as he looks at the fake masterpiece before him. The painting looks exactly like the original, even to a trained eye, maybe even better. And so, the idea starts to grow inside him. He can make more of these. He could sell them for more than he ever made selling his own work. The market for original art was slow, but forgeries, those could make him a fortune. Little does he know, this gamble will pull him into the world of Soviet spies, government conspiracies, and an art smuggling ring that stretches all the way from Warsaw to Moscow. A couple of weeks later, an unusual visitor knocks on Carol's door. He's not a regular buyer. That much is obvious. The man stands a little too straight, his coat slightly too long for the time of year. His posture is stiff, as if he's used to something other than art dealing. He introduces himself as Anatoly, and Carol can't place the name at first. Anatoly doesn't waste any time. He doesn't ask for the usual landscapes or portraits. He asks about forgeries. Carol doesn't know it yet, but Anatoly is not just a wealthy art collector. He's a Soviet agent, deep in the business of securing cultural treasures for the motherland. And for some reason, he's interested in Carol's little art shop. He's heard rumors, whispers, about a new forger in town who's been recreating lost masterpieces with extraordinary precision. Carol, of course, denies it first. He brushes it off as a misunderstanding. He's just an artist. He tells Anatoly nothing more. But Anatoly doesn't leave. He presses further, subtly hinting at a lucrative business partnership, one that Carol would be foolish to refuse. This is the moment when Carol's quiet life of deception begins to spiral into something far darker. He starts to realize that the forgeries he's been creating aren't just for local collectors or a bit of extra cash. They are part of something much larger. Anatoly makes it clear that there is demand for these fakes, not just in Warsaw, but in places where the real art is too dangerous to be traded. The Soviets are desperate for cultural treasures, ones that will prove their superiority and power on the world stage. And Carol has the talent to give them what they want. All it takes is a little risk and a little help from the right people. And so, Carol finds himself swept up into a world of espionage, art theft, and a dangerous game of trust. He's still not sure if he's in too deep. At first, it feels like any other transaction, but there's a weight to it now. The stakes have changed. He's no longer just painting for a living. He's painting to deceive, to build a hidden empire of art. And with every new canvas, the line between reality and fraud begins to blur. How long can Carol keep up the charade? Will he even want to, once he realizes the true cost of this dangerous game? The weeks pass, and with each day, Carol's world becomes more and more intertwined with the dangerous game he's now playing. As the days blur into one another, he begins to wonder how far he can take this without it catching up with him. Anatoly's visits become more frequent, and soon, Carol is no longer creating just one or two pieces. He's churning out entire collections of forged masterpieces, paintings that could have easily been mistaken for originals. The excitement of the craft, the thrill of the deception, starts to consume him. It's not just about money anymore. It's about proving to himself that he's capable of outsmarting the most experienced art dealers and collectors in Europe. Each forgery that leaves his shop feels like a small victory. There's the portrait of a long-dead French aristocrat, the landscape of the Alps, a few strokes of paint, a carefully crafted signature, and they all look just like the real thing. Carol marvels at his own skill, almost proud of the way his forgeries blend seamlessly into the historical art world. But that's where the problem lies. Carol doesn't know it yet, but he's not the only one creating forgeries. His work is being circulated through a network of smugglers, and the Soviets aren't the only ones taking notice. As his forged paintings begin to gain notoriety, the dangerous underworld of art forgery, smuggling, and espionage expand around him. One day, Anatoly drops a bombshell. He tells Carol that the smuggling ring he's now a part of has grown far beyond what Carol originally imagined. It's not just Soviet agents anymore. There are buyers in Western Europe, people with deep pockets willing to pay top dollar for the fakes. The stakes are growing higher, and the pressure on Carol intensifies. He's no longer simply creating art. He's now part of an international operation that's shaking the very foundation of the art world. What started as a quiet little scam is now a high-stakes game, and Carol is in too deep to back out. But the paranoia starts to set in. The thought of someone recognizing his work, of getting caught. These fears begin to weigh heavily on him. The thrill of his success turns into a gnawing anxiety, a sense that it's all slipping out of his control. He begins to wonder who else is involved in the operation. Who's really benefiting from the forgeries? Is it just the Soviets, or is there a bigger force at play? As the pressure mounts, Carol starts looking over his shoulder more frequently, watching for any signs that someone might be onto him. He can't shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, is tracking his every move. One evening, as he prepares another batch of paintings, Carol receives an unexpected visitor. This time, it's not Anatoly. Instead, a mysterious man shows up at his shop, tall, dark-haired, and with a cool, calculating demeanor that immediately sends a chill down Carol's spine. The man introduces himself as Victor, a collector from Moscow. He speaks in smooth, measured tones, but there's something unsettling about him. Carol instantly knows that Victor isn't here for a simple transaction. This man is more than just a buyer. He's a player in the game, a much larger, more powerful player than Carol could have ever anticipated. Victor makes no small talk. He simply asks for a collection of forgeries. a specific set of masterpieces, each one more valuable than the last. Carol's heart skips a beat. This is it, the moment he's been waiting for, the chance to prove his worth. But at the same time, he can't shake the feeling that Victor knows more than he's letting on. Victor's eyes seem to pierce right through him, as though he can read Carol's every thought. This isn't just a regular transaction. Something bigger is at play here, and Carol is about to find out how deep the rabbit hole really goes. After Victor leaves, Carol is left with more questions than answers. Who is Victor really working for? What does he want with these forgeries? And what will happen if Carol can't deliver the paintings Victor has requested? The pressure continues to mount, and Carol knows that he's racing against time. One wrong move, and everything could come crashing down. But it's too late to turn back now. The world he's entered is far too dangerous and far too profitable for him to walk away. In the meantime, the Soviets continue to push for more. Anatoly visits Carol more frequently, and each time the demands grow higher. Carol's shop is no longer just a quiet little art dealer's haven. It's a hub of illegal activity. The quiet life he once knew has disappeared, replaced by an ever-expanding network of buyers, smugglers, and collectors, all eager for a piece of his forged art. The deeper he gets, the harder it becomes to tell friend from foe. The line between who's working with him and who's trying to take him down becomes increasingly blurred. Carol starts to wonder if the art world, for all its beauty and prestige, is nothing more than a facade for something far darker. And still, the paintings keep coming. The forgeries pile up, one after another. Carol's skill is undeniable, but with each new piece, the risk grows. He starts to feel like a marionette, his strings being pulled by forces he doesn't fully understand. Is he in control, or is he merely a puppet in a much larger game? It's a question that will haunt him for the rest of his days. As Carol spends more time submerged in the world of art forgery, something begins to shift within him. The initial thrill of success, the quiet, almost innocent forgeries that he once made for modest collectors, has given way to something darker. Now, every brushstroke feels like part of a larger, more dangerous plan, and each painting he creates brings him closer to a point of no return. The anxiety continues to build, yet it's also accompanied by an unsettling sense of inevitability. Carol knows this is no longer just about money or skill. It's about survival. He's tangled in a web of deceit, and it's far too late to extricate himself. Victor's latest visit only adds to Carol's growing unease. The Russian collector doesn't just make demand for the next set of forged paintings. He brings a more ominous proposition. Victor suggests that Carol travel to Moscow to meet with his superiors. There's a reason why the Soviets are so interested in his work. They want more than just his paintings. They want him to become an official part of their operation. It's a chance to move up in the world, Victor tells him, to gain access to higher-paying buyers and more powerful connections. It's also a chance to guarantee his safety. But Carol knows that this offer comes with a heavy price. If he accepts, he will be no longer just an artist in a back-alley shop. He'll be a pawn in the Soviet game. He'll be entangled in the machinations of a government that doesn't care about art, only about control. And that thought frightens him. But what frightens Carol more is the fact that he's seriously considering Victor's offer. As much as he tries to push away the idea, it keeps coming back. The temptation of wealth, power, and safety is strong. The world he's built with his forgeries could crumble at any moment, and accepting the Soviets' offer might be his only way out. The more he thinks about it, the more the lines between right and wrong begin to blur. What would it hurt, he wonders, to just step deeper into this dangerous world and see where it takes him? After all, hasn't he already crossed too many lines to go back? The decision weighs heavily on him. and for a few days, Carol does nothing but think about it. He knows what Victor wants. He's asking for loyalty, a complete commitment to the Soviet cause, and Carol's skill. But Carol isn't entirely sure if he trusts Victor or the Soviet system behind him. The idea of being owned, of losing his identity as an artist, unsettles him. He realizes that once he steps onto this path, he might never be able to turn back. There's no way of knowing what Victor's superiors truly want from him, or if they'll even spare him when they no longer need his services. The world of forgery and art is already treacherous enough, but adding this new layer of politics and espionage makes everything feel even more dangerous. And then, just when Carol is on the verge of making a decision, an unexpected event shakes him to his core. He receives a letter, handwritten, with no return address. The letter is vague, cryptic, and unsettling. It's from a collector in Paris, someone Carol has never heard of. The letter urges him to be cautious of his dealings with Victor and to consider the long-term consequences of his actions. The writer claims to know exactly what Carol is doing and warns him that the Soviets are not to be trusted. The letter speaks of betrayal, of a network of spies and forgers who have all been swallowed by the same system. Carol's heart races as he reads the letter. It's the first time someone has warned him about the Soviets, but there's something more disturbing about it. The tone of the letter feels personal, almost as if the writer knows something that Carol hasn't yet figured out. For the first time in months, Carol feels truly unsettled. He tries to ignore the growing sense of paranoia that's creeping up on him, but it's no use. The more he thinks about it, the more the letter seems like a warning, a plea for him to get out before it's too late. But how does one simply walk away from an operation this big, this deeply ingrained in his life? Carol knows that backing out now would be almost impossible. The people he's dealt with aren't just interested in art. They're interested in power, control, and influence. And they don't take kindly to people who try to escape from their grasp. The next day, Carol meets with Victor again. The tension is thick in the air as Victor presses him to make a decision. It's time to take the next step, Victor insists. The Soviets are ready to put him in the position he's always dreamed of. More money, more power, more prestige. Carol's heart races as he listens to Victor's promises, the temptation swirling around him. But just as Victor speaks, Carol hears a faint sound from the corner of the room. He spins around, his eyes scanning the shadows. For a brief moment, he thinks he sees something, a figure moving in the darkness. But when he looks again, there's nothing there. His nerves get the best of him, and he begins to question everything. The smuggler's world is collapsing, the walls closing in, and Carol knows that the next decision he makes could very well be his last. Can he trust Victor? Is the offer genuine, or is there a much darker plan behind it? And if he says no, what will the Soviets do to him? The question of loyalty is weighing heavily on his mind. He knows he's not just risking his livelihood, he's risking his life. The days leading up to Carol's decision are filled with restless nights and anxious moments. Every creak of the floorboards in his shop, every knock on the door makes him jump. The tension in the air becomes almost unbearable, as if he can feel the weight of the choice he has to make pressing down on him. He continues to paint, his brushes moving almost mechanically as he works on his next batch of forgeries. But there's no joy in the process anymore. The thrill is gone, replaced by a growing sense of dread. Each stroke of paint on the canvas feels like a step further down a road he can't escape. Carol spends more time reflecting on the cryptic letter he received from the Parisian collector. The warning weighs heavily on his mind. Who could have known about his operation, and why would they risk reaching out to him? The fact that someone is watching, someone who knows the ins and outs of the smuggling ring, only makes the situation more dangerous. It's as though the walls are closing in, and Carol is caught in the middle of something much larger than he ever realized. The question lingers in his mind. Can he trust Victor and the Soviets? Or is there another force at play? One that's far more dangerous? The moment of truth arrives one chilly morning when Victor comes to see him again. His visit is more urgent this time, and the words he speaks are a direct challenge to Carol's sense of control. The Soviets have moved up their timetable, Victor explains, and they need the forged masterpieces now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now, there's an edge to Victor's voice that Carol hasn't heard before, an unspoken threat that makes his heart race. It's clear that the deal is no longer just an offer, it's become a demand. Victor presses harder, telling Carol that if he doesn't accept the proposal, there will be consequences, not just for him, but for the people he cares about. Carol's stomach turns as the words sink in. He's being backed into a corner with no way out. But then, as Victor leaves, Carol finds himself filled with a strange sense of resolve. The decision is clear now. He can't live in fear any longer. If he's going to continue down this path, he's going to have to own it. He's going to have to embrace the world he's become a part of, no matter how dangerous it may be. There's no turning back. For the first time in weeks, Carol makes his decision. He agrees to meet Victor's superiors in Moscow, knowing full well that his life will never be the same again. He will go from being a small-time forger to a player in a much larger, far more treacherous game. He can't deny the allure of the power and wealth the Soviets have promised him. The stakes are too high, and the temptation is too great. Before he leaves, Carol takes a long look around his shop, the place where it all started. The walls are covered with paintings, some of them old and faded, others new and vibrant. It's hard for him to believe that a few short months ago, this shop was his sanctuary, a place where he could just be an artist. But now it's become a prison. Every canvas, every painting feels like a reminder of the lies he's been living. He takes one last, lingering look at the corner where his forgeries are kept, knowing that he's walking away from everything he once knew. The journey to Moscow is long, and Carol spends much of the time lost in his thoughts. The weight of the decision he's made presses on him, and he begins to question if he's made the right choice. As the train clatters along the tracks, he can't help but feel that something is off, that he's being led into a trap. But what choice does he have? If he tries to back out now, he knows the Soviets will come after him, and he'll never escape the consequences. He has no allies, no way of knowing who to trust. All he has now is his art and his ability to deceive. When Carol finally arrives in Moscow, he's met by Victor and a few of his associates. The city is nothing like Warsaw. It's cold and imposing, the streets lined with grand buildings that seem to stare down at him as if judging his every move. Victor leads him to a secluded meeting room where the Soviets' high-ranking officials are waiting. There's a strange sense of formality in the air, and Carol can't shake the feeling that he's being evaluated, that his every word and gesture is being scrutinized. The room is sterile, the atmosphere tense. The Soviets are not interested in small talk. They want results, and they want them now. Carol stands before them, feeling smaller than ever before. The reality of the situation hits him hard. This is no longer about art. This is about survival. The Soviets don't care about his skill or his vision. They care about using him to further their own agendas. He's nothing more than a tool, a means to an end. The meeting is brief, but the implications are clear. The Soviets want more than just forgeries. They want Carol to create a series of paintings that will be used for political propaganda, works of art that will be presented as the masterpieces of Western culture. It's a task far more dangerous than anything Carol has done before. His paintings will no longer just be hidden away. They'll be on display, used to deceive the world. And the risk of exposure is higher than ever. As the meeting ends, Victor gives Carol a stern look. Remember, he says, you're not just an artist anymore. You're part of something much bigger than you realize. The weight of those words hangs in the air as Carol exits the building, knowing that his life will never be the same. The days in Moscow stretch on endlessly, each one blending into the next like a repetitive, dull painting. Carol spends most of his time in a small, sterile apartment assigned to him by the Soviets. The apartment feels less like a home and more like a cell, its gray walls and sparse furniture only adding to the feeling of isolation. He's become a cog in a larger machine, and the realization is starting to eat away at him. The excitement he once felt when creating his forgeries has been replaced by a gnawing dread. What had seemed like a small, harmless deception back in Warsaw is now a high-stakes political game, and Carol is too deeply involved to escape. He's never felt more trapped in his life. Victor continues to visit him frequently, each time bringing a new set of orders from his superiors. They want more forgeries, more paintings that will serve their political agenda. The pressure is relentless, and Carol begins to wonder if he can keep up with the demand. The Soviets are not interested in mere copies. They want to create an entire narrative around these paintings. They want Western masterpieces to be displayed in museums and galleries as evidence of Soviet cultural superiority. It's a dangerous task, and Carol knows the risks are growing with every brushstroke. But he has no choice but to comply. If he refuses, there will be consequences. Consequences he's not sure he can survive. The more Carol works, the more he begins to notice the cracks in the operation. The Soviets aren't just after art. They're after something much more valuable: control. Control over the narrative of history. Control over what people believe to be true. The paintings Carol is creating are being used as tools in a propaganda campaign, a way to shape the perception of the Soviet Union on the world stage. And Carol is the one responsible for crafting this illusion. He starts to feel the weight of his role in this vast political game. Each painting he creates feels like a lie that will be told over and over again for decades to come. And he, the artist, is the one perpetuating it. But it's not just the Soviets that are beginning to take notice of Carol's work. As his forgeries gain more prominence, whispers begin to spread throughout the art world. The pieces Carol has created are starting to find their way into private collections and galleries across Europe. His name is becoming known, though not in the way he would have hoped. Some of the world's most prestigious collectors are purchasing these paintings, unaware of their true origins. It's a dangerous game that Carol is playing, and he can't help but feel the weight of the deception pressing down on him. In one particularly tense moment, Carol is asked to create a forgery of a famous French painting, one that was thought to have been lost during the war. The Soviets are eager to display this painting in a high-profile exhibit in Moscow, but they need Carol's help to make it look authentic. The task is daunting, even for someone with Carol's skill. He spends days in isolation, studying the original painting, analyzing every detail down to the smallest brushstroke. But as he works, the pressure begins to get to him. The painting becomes more than just a forgery. It becomes a symbol of everything that is wrong with what he's doing. With every brushstroke, he feels a little more like a traitor to the world of art. One evening, as Carol steps back to look at the painting he's just completed, he sees something that stops him dead in his tracks. The painting, while perfect in every way, feels wrong. The colors are off, the brushstrokes a little too precise, the textures a little too clean. It's almost as if he's looking at a copy of a copy, an imitation of something that was never meant to be replicated. Carol shakes his head, trying to dismiss the feeling. After all, this is what he does. He's a forger, and forgers don't get to question the work they're creating. But the unease lingers, gnawing at him. And for the first time since he began this journey, Carol wonders if he's made a terrible mistake. The next day, Victor arrives to inspect the painting. As always, Victor's eyes are sharp, assessing every detail of the work. He nods approvingly, but Carol can see something in his eyes, something that's not quite satisfaction, but more like a silent acknowledgement that this is just another job, another piece in a larger game. Victor's words are cold, businesslike, as he makes arrangements for the painting to be shipped to Moscow. But before he leaves, he tells Carol something that sends a chill down his spine. "You're doing well, Carol," Victor says with a slight smile, "but don't forget, art is not just about skill. It's about control, and you're helping us control the narrative." The weight of those words settles heavily on Carol as Victor leaves. The idea that his work is being used as a tool for propaganda, for control, sends a shiver through him. It's not just about creating forgeries anymore. It's about shaping history, bending it to the will of those in power. Carol realizes that he's no longer an artist. He's a pawn in a much larger, far more dangerous game, and there's no way out. The tension builds as Carol continues to create more forgeries, each one more complex than the last. He's no longer just copying famous paintings. He's recreating entire historical periods, manufacturing art that never existed. With each piece, the lines between truth and fiction blur more and more. Carol wonders how long it will be before someone notices the truth. How long before someone uncovers the deception, the carefully constructed illusion he's helped build. But no matter how much he questions it, Carol knows that there's no going back now. The Soviets have him in their grasp, and the art world is complicit in the lie. His fate is sealed, and all he can do now is keep painting, keep forging, and keep playing his part in this high-stakes game of deception. The realization that there's no turning back settles heavily in Carol's chest, and the more he creates, the more he's consumed by the lie he's living. What began as a small, harmless deception has transformed into an overwhelming force he can no longer control. His life has become a constant series of forgeries, and with each new painting, he sinks deeper into the labyrinth of deceit. The pressure is becoming unbearable. He feels as though he's being crushed under the weight of it all. The Soviets' demands, the international buyers, the constant fear of being exposed. But the Soviets' grip on him tightens even more as they begin to use him for more than just art. Carol is no longer just a tool for creating fake paintings. He's now involved in a covert operation that spans across Europe. The paintings he creates are no longer just hung on walls. They're part of a larger narrative being woven to support Soviet propaganda. The forgeries are being smuggled across borders, hidden inside crates of genuine artwork, and sent to galleries, museums, and private collections all over the continent. Carol feels sick every time one of his works is shipped off to a new location. He knows that it's only a matter of time before someone notices something is amiss. Yet, as he continues to work, he can't help but feel a strange detachment. It's as if he's becoming numb to the deception. The act of painting no longer brings him any joy, but it also no longer fills him with guilt. He's learned to push his emotions aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. He paints because he has no other choice. It's the only way he knows how to survive in this world he's become entangled in. The world of art has turned from something beautiful to something sinister, and Carol is the one painting the illusion. One day, as Carol works late into the night, a thought crosses his mind, an unsettling thought that makes his blood run cold. What if someone figures it out? What if they find out about his role in the forgeries? What if all the lies he's been telling, all the people he's deceived, finally come crashing down around him? The thought of exposure is too much to bear, and Carol begins to feel the weight of impending doom hanging over him. He can't shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, is watching him. Perhaps it's the Parisian collector who sent him the warning letter. Perhaps it's someone else in the smuggling network, someone who knows more than Carol does. The uncertainty eats at him. That night, as he finishes up his latest work, a forgery of a 17th century Dutch masterpiece, Carol receives another unexpected visitor. This time, it's not Victor. It's a man who introduces himself simply as Mikhail. The man is tall, with sharp features and cold eyes that seem to pierce right through Carol. There's something unsettling about him, something that feels off. Mikhail tells Carol that he's been assigned to oversee his work from now on. The Soviets, Mikhail explains, are very pleased with the progress Carol has made, but they want to make sure he remains on track. The pressure increases once again, and Carol realizes that Mikhail is here to ensure his loyalty. The stakes are higher than ever. Mikhail is relentless, asking questions about Carol's work, examining every detail with a cold, clinical eye. Carol can sense that Mikhail is not just an art collector or a buyer. He's someone with a much darker purpose, someone who has no interest in art beyond its use as a tool for control. Carol knows that Mikhail is watching him closely, gauging his every word and gesture. This is no longer just about creating paintings. It's about Carol's survival. If Mikhail suspects anything, if he believes Carol is no longer useful, he knows that the consequences will be severe. As the days pass, Carol begins to feel trapped in his own mind. The walls of the apartment feel like they're closing in, and the pressure of the situation becomes almost unbearable. His thoughts become more erratic, more paranoid. He starts to question every person he meets, every deal he makes, every stroke of the brush. Who can he trust? Who is working with him? And who is trying to use him? The line between friend and enemy becomes blurred, and Carol realizes that he's too far gone to tell the difference anymore. All he has left is his art, and the haunting thought that it will never be enough. Mikhail's visits grow more frequent, and Carol finds himself in a constant state of anxiety. He paints, but the joy has long since left him. The art has become a means of survival, nothing more. The Soviets' demands continue to escalate, and Carol is stretched thinner with each passing day. But there's no escape. The world of art forgery has become his prison, and the only way out is through the very system he's been forced to join. He's living in constant fear, always wondering if today will be the day his secret is uncovered. One day, as Carol finishes a particularly intricate forgery, he receives word that another shipment is leaving for Moscow. This time, the stakes are higher. The forgery he's created will be presented at a high-profile Soviet exhibition, where it will be displayed alongside works by famous European artists. The exhibition is meant to show the world that the Soviet Union is capable of producing world-class art, an attempt to shift the narrative and prove that Soviet culture is on par with the West. Carol knows that this is the ultimate test. If the painting passes inspection, he will solidify his position within the Soviet operation. But if it fails, if someone spots the forgery, his life will be over. The pressure is unbearable. Carol feels like he's standing on the edge of a cliff, and one wrong move will send him tumbling into oblivion. The stakes have never been higher, and the thought of exposure is more terrifying than ever. But there's nothing left to do but wait. He watches as the painting is carefully packed and shipped off to Moscow, knowing that his fate is now in the hands of others. The Soviets are watching. The world is watching. And Carol's time is running out. As the days drag on, Carol can't shake the feeling of impending doom that hangs over him. The painting he's created for the Soviet exhibition is on its way to Moscow, and he's left with nothing but the nagging worry that everything he's built is teetering on the edge of collapse. He doesn't dare let himself believe that he's safe. Not yet. He knows that the Soviets are ruthless, and if his forgery is discovered, they won't hesitate to dispose of him, just as they've disposed of countless others who failed to meet their expectations. The weight of that knowledge sits heavy on his shoulders. In the quiet of his apartment, Carol tries to focus on the next task at hand. The Soviets are already asking for more paintings, and Victor's demands are growing more urgent by the day. But Carol's mind isn't on his art anymore. It's on the shipment, on the fate of the forgery he's sent to Moscow. Every time he hears a knock on the door, his heart races, convinced that someone is coming to deliver bad news. Every phone call is a potential warning that the forgery has been discovered. He's been living in a constant state of anxiety, unable to escape the oppressive sense that his life is spiraling out of control. In the midst of this, something unexpected happens. He receives another letter from the same Parisian collector who had warned him earlier. This time, the message is more urgent. The letter urges Carol to leave Moscow before it's too late, to escape the Soviets' grasp before they decide his usefulness has run its course. The collector tells him that the network Carol is now a part of is far larger and more dangerous than he realizes. There are whispers of betrayal, of plans to eliminate those who've outlived their usefulness. Carol's heart races as he reads the letter, and for a fleeting moment, the thought of escape, of freedom, seems within his reach. But reality quickly sets in. He can't leave now, not when he's this deep in the game. The Soviets have him trapped, and walking away would be a death sentence. But the letter keeps coming back to him. It lingers in his thoughts like a ghost. The idea of escape, of starting fresh, feels impossible and yet so tantalizing. Carol finds himself staring at the letter for hours, trying to decide what to do. If he stays, he risks everything. If he leaves, he risks being caught by the Soviets, hunted down, and disposed of like so many others before him. The decision seems unbearable. The tension in his chest builds, and the uncertainty threatens to consume him. Days later, Carol is summoned to a private meeting with Victor. This time, the atmosphere is different. There's a coldness in Victor's voice, a sharp edge that wasn't there before. Carol knows that something has changed. Victor tells him that the Soviets are pleased with the work he's done so far, but they want even more now. They want Carol to help them create a series of forgeries that will be used to infiltrate Western museums and private collections. The plan is ambitious, and Victor makes it clear that Carol is now an integral part of their operation. There's no turning back. The Soviets are not just using his art, they're using him as a weapon. He's being drawn further into the web of deception, and the walls are closing in tighter with every passing day. Carol listens in stunned silence as Victor lays out the plan. The sense of dread that has been building inside him reaches a crescendo. He realizes that there is no way out, no escape from the tangled mess he's found himself in. The Soviets have him exactly where they want him, trapped, cornered, and completely reliant on their system. He's a cog in a much larger machine, and there's no way to stop it. That night, Carol lies awake, staring at the ceiling of his sterile apartment. His mind races with thoughts of what Victor has told him. The idea of infiltrating Western museums and private collections with his forgeries fills him with a sense of revulsion. He never imagined that his art, something he once loved, would be used in such a way. What started as a small, seemingly harmless act of forgery has now become a political weapon, one that could shape the future of nations. The next morning, Carol's decision is made. He will continue to forge the paintings for the Soviets. He has no other choice. The fear of betrayal, the pressure to conform, and the sense of danger surrounding him leave him with little room for anything else. He He's already gone too far to turn back now. He must finish the job, no matter the cost. As the days pass, the tension between Carol and the Soviets grows. Victor continues to push him harder, demanding more and more paintings, each one more complex than the last. But Carol is no longer working with the same passion he once had. The forgeries, once a source of pride, now feel like a betrayal of everything he once believed in. He's creating lies, feeding into a narrative he no longer agrees with. But he keeps painting because it's the only thing he knows how to do. It's the only way he can survive in this world that's becoming darker and more dangerous with every passing moment. One day, while working on a particularly difficult forgery, Carol is interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. His heart leaps into his throat as he slowly approaches, wondering if this is the moment everything will unravel. When he opens the door, he finds Victor standing there, his face unusually tense. "There's been a problem," Victor says, his voice low and serious. "The forgery you sent to Moscow, it's been noticed." The words hit Carol like a punch to the gut. The forgery, the one he'd worked so hard on, the one he'd sent to the high-profile Soviet exhibition, has been discovered. The truth is out, and Carol knows that his time is running out. The moment Victor speaks, Carol feels a cold wave of panic wash over him. His knees weaken, and for a brief second, it's as though the room spins. The forgery, the one he's worked so tirelessly on, has been noticed. What does that mean? Has someone discovered it's a fake? Or worse, has the entire operation been exposed? Victor doesn't give him much time to dwell on the implications. "We need to move quickly," Victor continues, his tone now sharp and commanding. "There's been a leak. The painting was examined by someone with a keen eye, someone who could spot a forgery in an instant. We don't know how much they know yet, but you're going to have to help clean this up." Carol is frozen. He opens his mouth to speak, but finds no words. His thoughts are a jumbled mess, racing from one fearful possibility to another. How did they find out? Was it something he missed in the painting? Was it too perfect, too immaculate? The pressure is mounting, the walls of his carefully constructed world now beginning to collapse. He can feel the weight of it, the reality of his situation. This is no longer about art. It's about survival. Victor steps into the room, his presence looming. "You need to get rid of all the forgeries," he says, his voice low. "We'll destroy what's left of the operation and move quickly. The Soviets can't afford to have this exposed. You'll be handling the cleanup. Do you understand?" Carol nods mechanically. He understands, all right. He's being asked to erase everything, to wipe away the traces of his involvement. It's clear that the Soviets will stop at nothing to protect their interests, and Carol's role in this, his very existence, depends on him playing along. He can feel his heart racing, the familiar taste of fear creeping up his throat. But what other choice does he have? The answer is obvious: cooperate or face the consequences. For the next few days, Carol is in a state of frantic motion. He works tirelessly to dismantle everything he's built. Every forged painting, every document connected to the operation must be destroyed. He watches, his hands shaking, as canvases are ripped, paintings are burned, and files are shredded. Each item is a reminder of the life he's built, of the deception he's fed the world. But with every shred of evidence he destroys, the knot in his stomach tightens. The Soviets are ruthless. If they suspect he's done anything wrong, there will be no mercy. At one point, Carol is left alone in his apartment, the ashes of his work piled in front of him. He's never felt more empty. The paintings, once full of life and vibrancy, now reduced to nothing but charred remnants. His entire existence has been erased in an instant, as though it was all for nothing. The pain of it is almost too much to bear. He was once an artist, an artist who had dreams of creating something beautiful. But now he's nothing more than a tool, a pawn in a game much larger than he could have ever imagined. But just as Carol begins to let the weight of his situation drag him down, a new realization hits him. He's not out of options yet. He hasn't been caught. Not yet. He hasn't completely lost control of the situation. There's still time to make a choice, to reclaim some piece of his life. But to do that, he'll need to act fast. The Soviets have their plans, and he's in their sights. He knows they won't hesitate to eliminate him if they think he's a liability. The clock is ticking. In the dead of night, Carol packs a small bag with the essentials. He knows that he can't stay in Moscow any longer, not with the situation the way it is. If he stays, the Soviets will track him down, and he'll never have a chance to escape. It's time to leave. But leaving means more than just walking away from the operation. It means leaving everything behind. It means abandoning the life he's known for the past few years, abandoning the art that he's both loved and betrayed. But it's the only way he can survive. Carol makes his way to the train station in the dead of night, his heart pounding in his chest. Every step he takes feels like a step away from the life he's known, and a step toward an uncertain future. He knows that the Soviets will be watching, that they'll be tracking his every move. But he's determined to escape. For the first time in months, he feels a glimmer of hope. Maybe there's a way out after all. Maybe he can leave the lies behind and start fresh, away from the shadow of the smuggling ring, away from the world of forgeries and deceit. But just as Carol boards the train, his thoughts are interrupted by a familiar face. Victor stands at the platform, his expression unreadable. "You're making a mistake," he says softly, though his voice carries a hint of warning. "You can't outrun this, Carol. The Soviets won't let you go." Carol freezes, his hand gripping the handle of his bag as the weight of Victor's words sinks in. For a moment, he considers turning around, going back to face the Soviets, to return to the life he knows. But then he remembers the destroyed paintings, the lies, and the fear. He knows what will happen if he goes back. With one last glance at Victor, Carol turns and steps onto the train. As the doors close behind him, he feels a strange sense of finality. He's leaving the life he's known, and everything that came with it, behind. There's no going back now. His future is uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he feels a sense of freedom. He doesn't know what's ahead, but for the first time in years, Carol feels like he has a choice. The train lurches forward with a loud creak, and Carol feels his heart race as the city of Moscow fades into the distance. For the first time in what feels like forever, he breathes a little easier, the weight of the Soviets' oppressive presence lifting just slightly. He watches through the window as the landscape changes, the urban sprawl of Moscow giving way to the dark, quiet countryside. But even as the train carries him away, Carol can't shake the feeling that he's being watched. He knows that the Soviets are relentless, that they will hunt him down if they even suspect that he's run. The idea of escape, of starting over, feels both exhilarating and terrifying. He looks around the train compartment. It's nearly empty, save for a few quiet travelers, each wrapped up in their own world. Carol sits in a corner, away from the others, trying to remain as inconspicuous as possible. His mind races with plans and contingencies. He's made it this far, but now he needs a way to disappear completely. It's not just about outrunning the Soviets anymore. It's about rebuilding his life from the ground up. But can he do it? Can he leave behind the man he's become and the lies that have followed him every step of the way? As the hours pass, Carol's thoughts wander back to the beginning of it all. He remembers the quiet art shop in Warsaw, the smell of paint, the hum of the brushes against the canvas. It all seems like a distant memory now, a part of life he can never return to. He was just an artist then, naive and hopeful. Now, he's a man on the run, a forger who's had to betray everything he once believed in. The path he's walked has led him to this moment, the moment of escape, and yet he wonders if he can truly leave it all behind. The journey is long, and Carol doesn't sleep much. The fear of being found lingers in the back of his mind. But there's a strange sense of calm that comes with the train's rhythmic motion. It's as if the world is passing him by, and for the first time in years, Carol is no longer part of it. The train moves through fields and small towns, the landscape rolling by in a blur. Carol stares out the window, watching the world slip away, and wonders what lies ahead. Is there still a place for him in the world, or is he too far gone to start over? By the time the train reaches the border, Carol's nerves are frayed. The station is busy, filled with travelers heading to various destinations, but Carol feels like an outsider. He keeps his head down, trying not to draw attention to himself, but his heart pounds in his chest. He knows that the Soviets will be looking for him, that their eyes are everywhere, and that he might not make it across the border undetected. But he can't turn back now. He's come too far. As he approaches the customs desk, his stomach tightens. The officer behind the counter eyes him briefly, his gaze lingering for just a moment longer than necessary. Carol holds his breath, waiting for the officer to ask him the question that will send his world crashing down. But the officer simply gestures for him to move on. Relief washes over Carol as he walks past, the tension in his body slowly starting to dissipate. He's made it. For now, outside the station, Carol takes a moment to collect himself. The world feels different here. There's a sense of freedom, a strange peace that he hasn't felt in years. The weight of the past still hangs over him, but for the first time, he feels like he has a chance to begin again. The thought of starting fresh, of building a life from the ground up, fills him with a new sense of purpose. But even as he walks away from the station, Carol knows that his past will always follow him. The Soviets won't just let him go. They'll be hunting him, looking for him in every city, every corner of the world. He can never truly escape what he's done. But for now, he's free. Free to live without the constant fear of being caught. Free to start over, and free to create a new life for himself. It's a small victory, but it's a victory nonetheless. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows over the quiet streets, Carol walks slowly through the city. He doesn't know where he's headed yet, but he knows he can't stop moving. He has to keep going, keep running, until he finds a place where he can finally breathe. The future is uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Carol feels like he has a choice. He can't undo the past, but maybe, just maybe, he can find a way to create a new future, one that doesn't involve forgeries, lies, or the Soviets. The night settles in around him, and Carol finds a small, quiet cafe on the corner. He steps inside, the warmth of the room embracing him as he takes a seat at the far end. There's no one to look over his shoulder here. No one to tell him what to do. No one to control him. For the first time in years, Carol feels like he can breathe. The weight of his past is still heavy on him, but for this moment, he can let go. He orders a cup of tea and sits back, watching the world move around him. He's free. The steam rises from the cup of tea in front of Carol, and he watches it swirl, feeling the warmth seep into his cold hands. The cafe is small but comfortable, a quiet refuge from the bustling world outside. He takes a sip, savoring the simple pleasure of the moment. It's a fleeting peace, one that feels almost foreign to him after everything he's been through. For the first time in ages, Carol doesn't feel like a man on the run, a fugitive from his past. He feels, if only for a brief moment, like a man who can simply exist. The sound of quiet conversations fills the cafe, but Carol remains lost in his thoughts, his mind wandering back to the journey that brought him here. How many times had he nearly been caught? How many times had he stared down the possibility of being exposed, of losing everything he had built? He has come so far, farther than he ever thought possible. And yet, he knows that his escape is only temporary. The Soviets will be looking for him, of that he's sure. They will never stop until they find him, until they silence him. But for now, the world feels a little less dangerous. There are no spies lurking in the shadows, no agents watching his every move. Carol can almost convince himself that he's free, that he's left behind the world of forgeries, deception, and political intrigue. The lie he's been living for so long feels distant, like a dream he can hardly remember. He's not the same man who painted those fakes, who lived in the shadow of Soviet power. That man feels like someone else now, someone who no longer exists. For a while, Carol allows himself to relax, to enjoy the comfort of anonymity. He's still unsure where he'll go next, where he'll find a place to truly start over. But for the first time, he doesn't feel as though he's being hunted. He's just one of the many faceless people passing through life, drifting from one day to the next. And that, in itself, feels like a small victory. But the peace is short-lived. A chill runs down Carol's spine as the door of the cafe opens, letting in a gust of cold air. He looks up, his breath catching in his throat as his eyes fall on the man who's just entered. The man is tall, wearing a long coat, and his features are sharp and cold. There's something about the way he moves, something familiar in his presence. Carol feels a wave of dread wash over him. He tries to ignore the growing feeling in his gut, but he can't. His eyes flicker nervously toward the door, his mind racing. The man walks past Carol's table without a second glance. Carol exhales slowly, trying to convince himself that it's just his imagination playing tricks on him. There's no way the Soviets could have found him this quickly. They couldn't have tracked him all the way here. But the feeling doesn't go away. It lingers in the back of his mind, the unease creeping back in. Carol takes another sip of his tea, trying to calm his nerves, but his mind is already racing. What if the Soviets had discovered his escape? What if they had sent someone after him, someone to track him down and bring him back into their fold? Carol glances around the cafe, his eyes searching for any sign of danger. He's not sure if he's paranoid or if he's truly being watched. His entire world has been built on lies, deception, and the constant fear of being exposed, and it's hard to shake that sense of danger now. No matter how far he runs, no matter how many miles he puts between himself and the Soviet regime, Carol knows that they will always be there, lurking in the shadows. He forces himself to focus, to calm down. The man who entered the cafe could be anyone. He could be just another traveler, someone with no connection to Carol's past. But the lingering feeling in Carol's chest refuses to go away. He knows he can't let his guard down, not now, not ever. The Soviets are ruthless, and they will stop at nothing to track him down. They've done it before, and they'll do it again if they have to. Carol stands up, his mind racing. He needs to leave. Now, the fear is rising again, and he can't ignore it. He gathers his things quickly, slipping the coins for his tea onto the table without a second thought. His heart is pounding in his chest as he heads for the door, his mind already formulating a plan of escape. He can't stay here, not with the possibility of being discovered. As he steps out into the cold night air, Carol feels a strange sense of urgency wash over him. The world is moving too fast, and he's fallen behind. The moment he steps away from the cafe, he starts walking briskly, blending into the crowd. He moves quickly, his eyes darting from one person to the next, trying to remain as inconspicuous as possible. He doesn't know if he's being followed, but he can't take any chances. The Soviets have eyes everywhere. He walks for hours, not stopping until he reaches a small, out-of-the-way hotel. It's not much, but it's quiet and safe, at least for now. He checks in under a false name, paying in cash, and makes his way to his room. As he locks the door behind him, Carol lets out a long, shaky breath. The familiar weight of fear settles back in, but this time he's not sure if it's real or just a product of his paranoia. He's not sure what's real anymore. Carol sits on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, his mind racing. He knows that his escape from the Soviets isn't over. It never will be. They'll be looking for him, always watching, always hunting. But for now, he's safe. For now, he has a chance to breathe. He doesn't know what comes next, but he knows one thing. He'll never stop running, never stop hiding. The past will always be with him, and the Soviets will never let him go. But for tonight, at least, he has a moment of peace. Days turn into weeks as Carol huddles in the small hotel room, the space becoming more familiar with each passing day, yet still holding an unsettling sense of transience. The world outside feels so far away, but Carol's mind remains tethered to the ever-present fear that one day the Soviets will find him. He can't relax, not fully, not for a second. Every knock at the door, every strange sound in the hall makes his heart race, and every passerby outside his window feels like a potential threat. The room, though quiet and safe, feels like a trap. There's no place where Carol can truly hide from his past. Not in this small, anonymous city, nor in any other city. His once vibrant life as an artist is now a distant memory, buried beneath the weight of the crimes he's committed. Even in this remote place, the ghost of his former self lingers, refusing to let him move on. He tries to keep a low profile, staying inside for the most part, painting only the bare minimum to keep his skills sharp and his mind occupied. But there's no escaping it. He's lost, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. He wonders if this is what it feels like to be truly lost, to have no identity, no future, no hope. The Soviets are out there, looking for him. His life, once built on deception and art, has now become a delicate, fragile thing, held together by the smallest strands of survival. Every day is a new attempt at convincing himself that he can keep going, that he can outweat the dangers that lie ahead. One evening, as Carol steps out for a brief walk, the night air cold and sharp against his skin, he finds himself near a small park. He doesn't know why he's drawn to it. Maybe it's the quiet stillness, or maybe it's the way the shadows play across the benches and trees. The park is empty except for a few scattered figures, none of whom pay him any mind. Carol takes a deep breath and sits on a bench, staring at the stars above. There's something oddly peaceful about the scene. For the first time in weeks, he allows himself a moment of clarity. He thinks of Warsaw, the streets he once knew so well, the life he had before everything turned upside down. He wonders what would have happened if he'd never fallen into the world of forgery, if he'd just stayed a humble artist, creating art for the joy of it. He longs for that simplicity, the days when his only worry was whether a canvas would sell or if his work would ever be appreciated. But those days are gone. They were buried along with his hopes and dreams the moment he made that first forgery. He knew it was a choice, a wrong one, but he made it anyway. And now, he's paying the price. Carol's thoughts are interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. He turns, his heart thudding in his chest, but it's just an older man walking his dog, nodding in greeting as he passes. Carol exhales slowly, the brief spike of panic subsiding. For a moment, he wonders if he's losing his mind. But then, the feeling passes, and he's left with the stillness of the night. His eyes wander to the distant streetlights, flickering in the quiet park. He doesn't know what comes next for him, and for the first time, he's not sure if he cares. The escape he once dreamed of now feels hollow. Running, hiding, it's all the same. The Soviets won't stop until they've found him, and no matter how many miles he puts between himself and his past, the shadow of it will always follow him. A thought slowly dawns on him. Maybe it's not about outrunning the past anymore. Maybe it's about facing it. Maybe it's about finding some semblance of peace, even in the midst of all the chaos. Carol has spent so long running from what he's done, from the consequences of his actions, that he's forgotten what it means to live in the present. Every decision he's made has been driven by fear. Fear of being caught. Fear of exposure. But maybe, just maybe, he can start living for himself again, not just for survival. The idea is almost laughable. How could he start fresh? How could he rebuild the pieces of a life that have been shattered beyond recognition? The answer is elusive, but the thought lingers like a small flicker of light in the darkness. For the next few days, Carol takes the time to reflect. He walks through the city, observing the people around him, unaware, unsuspecting. He feels a sense of detachment from them, a sense that they live in a world untouched by the horrors he's faced. He envies them for their ignorance of the dangers lurking in the shadows, for their ability to go about their daily lives without the constant weight of fear pressing down on their shoulders. Carol knows that he can never truly be part of that world. He can never go back to being the man he once was. The forgeries, the lies, the political machinations, they're all a part of him now. But maybe he can find a new purpose, something that isn't tied to deception or survival. Maybe he can create art again. Not for anyone else, not to make money or to deceive, but simply because it's something that's still inside of him, something that might help him reconnect with the world he's lost. The thought is comforting but fleeting. Carol knows that the road ahead won't be easy. He's too far gone, too deeply embedded in the past to simply walk away from it. But at least he can try. He can try to move forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. For the first time in a long while, Carol feels a slight sense of peace. The weight of his past doesn't feel as heavy. It still lingers, but it's no longer suffocating him. There's hope, however faint, that he can find a way to rebuild his life. Maybe it won't be in the way he imagined, but it will be his own. And that, in itself, is enough to keep moving forward. As the days pass, Carol begins to take small actions toward his goal. He finds a quiet place to paint, not for anyone else, not for the Soviets or anyone who might ever see his work, but for himself. It's a slow process. He paints with hesitation, unsure of himself after so many years of deception. But as the first brushstroke touches the canvas, Carol feels something stir inside of him, a feeling he thought he'd lost forever. The process isn't easy, and the road ahead is uncertain, but for the first time in years, Carol feels a sense of ownership over his own future. The past is still there, always lingering in the shadows, but it no longer defines him. He can't outrun it, but he can face it piece by piece until one day it no longer has control over him. And so, for now, Carol paints. He doesn't know what the future holds, but he knows this. He's still alive, and that's something worth holding on to. The days continue to pass in a haze of uncertainty, each one blending into the next as Carol sinks deeper into the rhythm of his solitary existence. The quiet moments of painting, those stolen pockets of time where the world outside seems to fade away, become his refuge. There's a strange comfort in the act of creating, in the tactile process of shaping something from nothing. His paintings, though far from perfect, feel like a bridge back to the man he once was. The man who was an artist, not a fugitive, not a pawn in a political game. For the first time in years, Carol feels like he's reconnecting with something real, something he can hold on to. But as much as the painting helps to soothe the constant churn of his thoughts, the rest of his life remains in flux. He's still alone, still constantly on edge, still wondering when the Soviets will catch up with him. He knows that his escape is temporary, a fragile thread that could snap at any moment. The fear that has haunted him for so long is not something he can simply push away. The past is too close, always just beneath the surface, and every unfamiliar face he passes in the street makes his heart race. But even so, Carol paints. It's the one thing he can still control, the one thing that grounds him in the present. One evening, after a long day of painting, Carol steps out into the cool air again. The city around him has become familiar, but it still feels foreign, an alien landscape that he's merely passing through. It's another quiet evening, the streets relatively empty. He walks aimlessly, his mind drifting from one thought to another. The weight of the past pulls at him, but he can't afford to dwell on it. He has to keep moving forward, has to keep creating. It's the only thing that keeps the shadows at bay. He stops near a small park, the same one where he had sat before. Only this time it's darker, the lights casting long shadows across the benches and paths. Carol hesitates for a moment before sitting down, the cool breeze tugging at his jacket. He stares ahead, his eyes following the path of the winding road that stretches into the distance. His thoughts wander again to the life he left behind, to Warsaw, to the art shop, to the forgeries and the people he betrayed along the way. He's tried so hard to leave it all behind, but it follows him like a shadow that refuses to disappear. A voice breaks his thoughts, soft and almost hesitant. Carol looks up, his heart skipping a beat, but it's just an older woman walking her dog. She smiles politely as she passes, and Carol nods in return, but the brief encounter leaves him unsettled. He's become so accustomed to being alone, to watching the world from the edges, that even the smallest interaction feels like an intrusion. He can't shake the feeling that he's being watched, that someone is always looking for him, waiting for him to slip up. Shaking off the thought, Carol stands up and continues his walk, determined to shake the unease that has settled in his chest. He walks aimlessly, letting the streets guide him, letting his feet carry him forward, wherever it may lead. The streets are quiet, the only sounds are the distant hum of traffic and the occasional footstep echoing in the distance. But then, just as Carol rounds a corner, he spots something that stops him dead in his tracks. A man is standing at the end of the street, his figure silhouetted against the light from a nearby lamppost. Carol's heart skips a beat. There's something about the man's stance, the way he's positioned, that makes Carol's instincts flare up. He knows that this man doesn't belong here. Not in this quiet, unassuming street. Not in Carol's world. The man doesn't move at first, but Carol can feel the tension building between them. He doesn't know why, but he feels a strange sense of dread wash over him. He tries to look casual, tries to keep his pace even, but his steps quicken as he gets closer to the figure. It's as though his body knows something that his mind hasn't fully processed yet. The hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Carol reaches for the door to a nearby building, a small cafe with dim lighting. He opens it quickly, stepping inside, but he doesn't dare look back. He takes a seat in the far corner, trying to calm his breathing, his pulse racing. The feeling of being watched doesn't go away, though. It hangs in the air like a heavy mist, suffocating and inescapable. The minutes stretch on, each one longer than the last. Carol sits still, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for something, anything, that will reassure him that he's safe. But he knows better. The feeling is growing stronger now. The nagging suspicion that his past has finally caught up with him. The Soviets are close. They've found him. A waiter comes over and offers a small smile, but Carol can't bring himself to respond. His mind is elsewhere, his senses on high alert. Every sound, every movement feels amplified. He barely hears the waiter's polite inquiry if he'd like anything else. His stomach churns with anxiety as he forces a smile, shaking his head and muttering a response about the bill. But then, just as quickly as the tension rose, the door opens again and the man outside disappears from view. Carol's heart is still pounding in his chest, but he doesn't dare leave the cafe yet. He stays seated, watching the door, waiting for any sign that the man is still out there or that someone else is going to walk through that door. The weight of the moment hangs in the air, and Carol knows that his escape, his quiet existence, is over. It's only when the waiter brings the bill that Carol allows himself to take a deep breath. He's still on edge, but for the first time in a while, he realizes that he's not just running from the Soviets anymore. He's running from everything he's done. The forgeries, the lies, the betrayals. It's all catching up with him, and there's no hiding from it anymore. Carol pays his bill and exits the cafe, stepping into the cold night air once again. The streets are still empty, but the lingering feeling of danger won't leave him. The Soviets are coming, and it won't stop until they've found him. The next chapter of his life is beginning, whether he's ready for it or not. The night air feels colder now, and Carol pulls his jacket tighter around him as he steps into the quiet streets. The unsettling feeling from the cafe lingers in the back of his mind, but he pushes it away, telling himself that it's just his paranoia playing tricks on him. He tries to ignore the sinking sensation in his chest, the one that tells him his time in this city is running out. He can't shake the feeling that something is coming, something that he won't be able to outrun. But for now, there's nothing he can do except keep moving forward. As he walks through the empty streets, Carol feels the weight of his past pressing down on him again. The Soviets are still out there, hunting for him, and no matter how far he goes, he knows they won't stop. They'll keep searching, keep looking, until they find him. The fear creeps back in, but this time it's different. This time, Carol knows that the danger isn't just from the Soviets. It's from his own actions, from the lies he's lived for so long. He's been running from the consequences of his choices, and now it feels like those consequences are finally catching up with him. He reaches a small alley, and without thinking, he turns into it, hoping to find a place to collect himself. The alley is narrow and dark, the only light coming from a single street lamp flickering at the far end. Carol walks slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The tension in his body is palpable, and he can't stop the thoughts from racing through his mind. His entire life has been a series of deceptions, a web of lies and forgeries that have brought him to this point. And no matter how much he tries to escape, he can never outrun the truth. He knows that eventually it will catch up to him. It always does. Suddenly, Carol stops in his tracks. He hears something, a sound, a faint rustling behind him, like footsteps in shadows. He freezes, his heart racing in his chest. He doesn't turn around at first, afraid to look. The last thing he wants is for his worst fears to be realized. But the sound grows louder, and before he knows it, Carol turns around sharply, his breath catching in his throat. It's the man from earlier, the one he had seen in the street. The man is standing at the end of the alley, his face partially hidden in the shadows, but Carol can see enough to know that he's the same person. His pulse quickens, and a sense of dread washes over him. The man's eyes gleam in the dim light, cold and calculating, and Carol immediately knows that this isn't a coincidence. He's been followed. The man steps forward, slowly, deliberately. Carol takes a step back, his mind racing. He knows this is bad. This is very bad. He tries to keep his voice steady, but it shakes as he asks, "Who are you?" The man doesn't answer at first. Instead, he takes another step closer, his footsteps muffled by the alley's stone pavement. Carol's instincts tell him to run, but something in the man's demeanor holds him in place. This isn't just some passerby. This man is here for a reason. And that reason, Carol realizes with a sinking feeling, is him. I've been looking for you, Carol, the man says, his voice low and smooth, almost too calm for the situation. You've made quite a mess for yourself. Carol's stomach drops. The man knows his name. How? How could he possibly know? The Soviets? Did they finally track him down? His thoughts spiral out of control, but he tries to stay composed, to keep his wits about him. He's learned enough from his past to know that panic never helps. What do you want? Carol forces himself to ask, trying to sound braver than he feels. He knows that he's cornered, but there's no way out. If this man has been following him, if he's somehow connected to the Soviets, then there's nothing Carol can do. He's stuck in a web he's spent so long trying to escape. The man tilts his head slightly, as if considering Carol's question. What I want is simple, he replies. I want you to come with me. It's time to settle your debts. Debts? Carol doesn't understand. His mind races, trying to make sense of the situation. He's been careful. He's kept his head down. He's been avoiding the authorities, staying off the grid. How can anyone have found him? I don't know what you're talking about, Carol says, but his voice betrays him. It's shaky, uncertain, and the man notices. He smiles, a cold, knowing smile that sends a shiver down Carol's spine. Don't play coy with me, the man says softly, his tone now colder, more threatening. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The forgeries, the Soviets, the lies. You think you can run forever? Carol takes a step back, his mind finally putting the pieces together. This man isn't just some ordinary agent. He's someone from the past, someone with ties to the Soviet network that Carol thought he had escaped. This man knows everything, and now he's here to drag Carol back into the game. What do you want from me? Carol asks again, this time more urgently. He's starting to realize that no matter how much he tries to escape, his past is always going to find him. The Soviets won't let him go. The man steps closer, his eyes gleaming with a cold, calculating look. I'm not here to make a deal, Carol. I'm here to finish what we started. Before Carol can react, the man reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a small envelope. He holds it out to Carol, who takes it cautiously. The envelope is heavy, thick, and when Carol opens it, he finds a single piece of paper inside. It's a photograph, a blurry image of a man Carol doesn't recognize. But there's something about the photo that strikes a chord deep inside him. This, the man says, is your final offer. Come with me, or you can keep running, and I promise you, it will be the last thing you ever do. Carol stares at the photo, his hands shaking. The decision that once seemed so simple, running, hiding, isn't so simple anymore. He knows that whatever happens next will define the rest of his life. He can run again, keep hiding, keep painting in secret, but he knows that sooner or later, the past will catch up with him. And this time, there's no place left to run. Carol stares at the photograph in his trembling hands. The man in the picture is unfamiliar to him, a stranger whose face seems to have no place in his memory. It's something about the expression in the photograph, the subtle tension in the figure's posture, pulls at Carol's gut. The man is standing in front of a building, the faint outline of a familiar landscape visible in the background. It's a place Carol vaguely recognizes, but he can't quite place it. His mind races, trying to decipher the meaning of the photo. Who is this man? What does he have to do with him, with his past? The questions swirl in Carol's mind like a storm, but the answer refuses to come. He looks up at the man standing before him, trying to read his expression, but the coldness in the stranger's eyes offers no clues. The man is patient, watching Carol with an intensity that is unnerving. Who is he? Carol asks, the words slipping out of his mouth before he can stop them. His voice is barely more than a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile bubble of control he's managed to maintain. The man doesn't answer immediately. He watches Carol carefully, a slight smirk playing at the corners of his lips. Finally, he speaks, his voice cold and measured. "Does it matter?" he asks, his tone laced with dark amusement. "What matters is the fact that you know him, even if you don't remember. You know exactly who he is, don't you?" Carol's heart skips a beat. The man's words send a chill down his spine, but before he can respond, the man continues, stepping closer, his presence looming over Carol. "You're not just running from the Soviets, Carol," the stranger says, his voice low and almost mocking. "You're running from your own mistakes, from your own choices, from a life you try to bury. But you can't bury the past forever." The weight of the man's words presses heavily on Carol. His mind flashes back to the forgeries, the people he's deceived, and the lies that have followed him for so long. He knows that the man is right. The past is never as far behind as he wishes it were. No matter how far he runs, it's always there, lingering in the corners of his mind, waiting for him to slip up. But this is different. This photo, this man, it feels like the key to everything. Carol's mind races, trying to piece together the connections, but they slip through his fingers like sand. Who is the man in the photo? And why does he feel so important? The stranger watches him, his expression unreadable, as if he knows the answer but isn't willing to give it away just yet. Finally, Carol takes a deep breath, steadying his nerves. "What do you want from me?" he asks again, his voice steadier this time. "Why are you doing this? What is all of this about?" The man's smirk widens slightly, but there's no humor in it. "I don't want anything from you, Carol. I'm here to give you an offer. A final one." Carol's pulse quickens. He has no idea what this man is talking about, but something about the way he's speaking, so calm, so controlled, makes Carol's blood run cold. "An offer?" Carol repeats, his voice taut with suspicion. "What kind of offer?" The man leans in slightly, his eyes narrowing. "A way out. A chance to make things right." Carol feels a chill grip his spine. The words sound almost too good to be true, but there's no mistaking the sincerity in a man's tone. He's not lying. And yet, Carol can't help but feel a sense of dread creeping over him. "A way out," Carol repeats, the question hanging in the air. "From the Soviets? From everything?" The man nods slowly, his gaze unwavering. "Yes, a chance to escape the past, to leave behind the life you've built with your forgeries, your lies. You've been running for so long, Carol, but running doesn't solve anything. It never has. Now you have a choice." Carol swallows hard, the weight of the decision beginning to settle over him. "What's the catch?" he asks, the question spilling out before he can stop it. "What do you want from me in return?" The man doesn't hesitate. "Nothing. You've already paid the price for your mistakes. All I'm offering is the chance to be free of them." The offer feels almost too easy, too simple. But Carol knows that nothing in his life has ever been that simple. There's always a price to pay, a cost to every choice. And yet, here is this stranger offering him freedom without asking for anything in return. "Why me?" Carol asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you offering this to me?" The man's eyes glimmer with something dark, something unreadable. "Because you're not just running from the Soviets. You're running from yourself. And I'm here to help you stop." Carol takes a shaky breath, his mind reeling. The weight of the decision is overwhelming. For so long, he's been consumed by fear, by the need to survive, to stay one step ahead of the Soviets, to outrun the past. And now, here's the chance to stop running, to finally make peace with everything he's done. But it's not that simple. He knows that. The consequences of his past still linger, still haunt him. And there's no escaping the fact that he's built his life on lies. Can he really just walk away from it all? Can he truly leave behind the forgeries, the deceit, the betrayal? The stranger watches him, as if waiting for Carol to make his choice. The silence stretches between them, heavy and thick. Carol's heart races as he tries to process everything, to weigh his options. But the truth is, there are no easy answers. He doesn't know if he can trust this man. He doesn't know if he can trust himself. Finally, Carol makes his decision. He looks up at the stranger, his gaze steady. "What's your offer?" he asks again, his voice resolute this time. "I'm listening." The man's smirk returns, but it's no longer mocking. It's almost approving. "Good. Let's talk about your future, Carol. The real one." And with that, the path ahead shifts. Carol feels the familiar pull of uncertainty. But for the first time in his life, he knows that the decision he makes now will be the one that shapes his future. The man before Carol doesn't move, doesn't speak, but his silence is enough. It's as though everything he's said, the promises, the hints, the insinuations, is now hanging in the air, waiting for Carol to make the final decision. The offer seems too simple, too good to be true, yet Carol feels the weight of it pressing against his chest. It's the opportunity to escape, to walk away from the tangled web of lies and deceit he's spun for years. And yet, the fear gnawing at him remains. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what might come next. "Tell me what you want from me," Carol finally says, his voice steady now. He's done with the uncertainty, the paranoia. He needs answers. Now, more than ever. If he's going to make this decision, he needs to understand what's at stake, what this strange man expects from him. The stranger's gaze shifts slightly, his eyes glinting with something almost imperceptible. Satisfaction? Impatience? Carol can't tell, but it only adds to the growing sense that this moment will shape everything that follows. "I don't want anything, Carol," the man says quietly. His voice is like silk, smooth and calm, but it holds an edge that Carol can feel deep in his bones. "What I'm offering is an exit, an opportunity for you to disappear, to wipe the slate clean." Carol's breath catches in his throat. He's heard of people disappearing before. Artists, dissidents, those who were once useful to the Soviets but had outlived their usefulness. Some managed to vanish without a trace, their names forgotten. Others, less lucky, found themselves in far worse fates. But this feels different. He isn't just being offered a way out from the Soviets. No, this man is offering him more. A clean slate, a chance to truly leave everything behind. It's the thing Carol's dreamed about for years. Disappearing, Carol repeats, the word leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. Just like that, no strings attached. The man nods slowly, his eyes narrowing just a fraction. No strings. No one will find you. You'll be free from your past, from the consequences of your actions. You can build a new life, one where the past doesn't matter anymore. The offer is tempting, but there's a catch. Carol knows there has to be. Nothing this clean comes without a price. What's the catch? Carol's voice is laced with suspicion. The man's lips curl into a thin smile, the kind that suggests he's been waiting for this question all along. "It's simple," he says, stepping forward slightly. "You agree to vanish, and you leave everything behind. No more forgeries, no more lies. You stop running from your past, and instead, you start running toward your future. You'll become someone else, a completely different person, a clean identity. Your new life starts the moment you say yes." Carol hesitates. The weight of the decision presses heavily on his chest, and for a moment, he wonders if this man is offering him a way out, or if he's just pushing him deeper into the shadows. "What happens to the people I left behind?" Carol asks, the question slipping out before he can stop it. It's a genuine concern, something he can't shake. He's betrayed so many people in his past, his friends, his colleagues. even the art buyers who trusted him? Can he truly walk away from them and not carry the weight of it with him? The man's smile fades slightly, his expression hardening just a touch. You don't need to worry about them. They're not your concern anymore. His voice is colder now, as though the question has revealed more than Carol realizes. This is about you, Carol. Your future. Your escape. Leave the past where it belongs, behind you. Carol swallows hard, the words echoing in his mind. Leave the past behind. Can he really do that? Can he simply abandon everything he's known, everything he's done, and walk away with no regrets? He thinks back to the first forgery, the thrill of creating something that wasn't real, the deception that gave him a sense of power and control. He remembers the early days when everything seemed simple, when all he wanted was recognition, admiration for his art. But those desires quickly spiraled out of control, and what had started as a small lie had turned into something much bigger, something dangerous. And now, here he is at a crossroads. He could take the man's offer, disappear, and leave all of it behind. He could start over, build a life where no one knows him for the lies he's told. No more forgeries, no more deception. But could he ever truly forget? Could he really live with the weight of the people he's hurt, the lives he's ruined? Carol's thoughts swirl, caught between the lure of freedom and the fear of losing himself in the process. The man is waiting, his eyes watching Carol closely, as though he already knows the answer. Think about it, Carol. The man says softly, his tone gentle now, almost coaxing. You don't have to keep running. You don't have to keep hiding from the past. This is your chance to start fresh, to leave it all behind. All you have to do is say yes. For the first time in a long time, Carol feels a sense of clarity. The weight of his past, the fear of being found, the guilt, all of it has been holding him down, dragging him into the darkness. But now, for the first time in years, he sees a sliver of light ahead. The future is uncertain, but the possibility of freedom is right in front of him. He takes a deep breath, his eyes locked on the man. For a brief moment, he imagines what it would be like to simply say yes, to walk away from everything and start anew, to be free. But then he thinks of the people he's wronged, the art buyers, the friends he betrayed, the people he's hurt along the way. Can he truly leave them behind without facing the consequences of his actions? The silence between them stretches on, and Carol knows that the moment of decision is upon him. He can feel the pull of both options, the desire for freedom and the need for redemption, fighting inside him. And then he makes the decision. The decision hangs in the air, thick with tension, as Carol stands at the crossroads of his future. His heart beats louder, the pounding echo of doubt and desire filling his mind. The man before him waits patiently, like a predator watching its prey. The offer is clear, almost too tempting to resist. The chance to disappear, to erase his past, to start over. Freedom, finally, from the burden of forgeries, lies, and guilt. But the cost? The people he's hurt, the choices he's made, the weight of it all presses on his conscience like a heavy stone. Carol takes a deep breath. The man's eyes flicker with something like approval, but Carol isn't sure if it's admiration or simply the cold satisfaction of someone who's seen too many men like him come and go. The stranger's silence speaks volumes, as if he knows Carol is close to making a decision. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the tension in the air feels so suffocating. Carol can't help but feel like he's being played, like this moment has been carefully constructed just for him. Every word, every gesture designed to lead him here. But this is his moment. It's his decision. And deep down, Carol knows that he can't live with the lies anymore. He can't keep running from the truth, even if that truth is painful. Even if it means facing the consequences of his past. Carol starts, his voice faltering, but he pushes through. The decision is hard to articulate, harder still to accept. But there's no going back. He looks up at the man, his voice steady now, despite the storm of emotions inside him. I can't just leave everything behind. I can't just disappear and pretend nothing happened. I've made mistakes, terrible ones, but I can't ignore them. I have to make things right. The man's expression doesn't change. He simply stands there, waiting. For a moment, Carol wonders if he said the wrong thing, if this is the point where everything falls apart. But then, the stranger speaks again, his voice lower, almost sympathetic. "You're thinking too much about the past, Carol," the man says, almost gently. "It's over. You can't undo what you've done, but you can choose what happens next. You can choose whether you spend the rest of your life trying to outrun the consequences or if you step forward into a new life." Carol feels the weight of those words sink in. He's been running for so long, running from the Soviets, from his guilt, from the shattered pieces of the life he built. But in all that running, has he ever really lived? Has he ever truly faced up to what he's done? No, you're right, Carol says softly, his voice steady now. "I can't undo the past, but I can take responsibility for it." He looks up at the man, his eyes unwavering. "I won't run anymore." The stranger's lips twitch into a small smile, one that seems almost pleased, as if he's been waiting for Carol to come to this realization. For a moment, Carol wonders if this was the man's goal all along, to push him toward this moment of reckoning. Perhaps he wasn't offering an escape at all, but simply an opportunity to confront the truth. "Good," the man says simply, his voice tinged with approval. "That's all I needed to hear." Carol feels something shift inside him, something he hasn't felt in years, a sense of clarity. He knows that this won't be easy. The road ahead will be filled with difficulty, with consequences he will have to face, but he's ready for it. He's ready to stop running, to stop hiding. For the first time, Carol feels like he's reclaiming his own future, instead of letting it slip away from him. The man nods once, a small, almost imperceptible gesture. "You've made your choice. Now, the rest is up to you." The weight that has been pressing on Carol's chest lifts slightly, but the truth is, he knows there's still much to be done. He has no illusions about what comes next. The Soviets are still out there, and they won't let him go easily. He may have made the decision to confront his past, but it's a battle that will take time. The consequences of his actions will follow him, no matter where he goes, no matter how far he runs. But for now, the first step is clear. He won't let fear control him anymore. He won't let the past dictate his future. "Thank you," Carol says, his voice quiet but sincere. He doesn't know if the man has truly helped him or if this has all been part of some grand game. But either way, the decision is his now. It's up to him to move forward, to face the consequences and rebuild from the ashes of his past. The stranger says nothing more, simply turning and walking away, his figure blending into the shadows of the alley. Carol watches him go, his mind finally at peace for the first time in a long while. He takes one last look at the photo, still clenched in his hand, the blurry image of the man he doesn't recognize. Who he is and what he wants will always be a mystery. But Carol no longer cares. He's made his choice. The past is behind him, and the future, no matter how uncertain, lies ahead. With a final deep breath, Carol turns and walks into the night, his steps steady, his mind clear. He doesn't know where he's going yet, but for the first time, he knows that he's not running anymore. The road ahead will be long, but it's his road to walk,